Hey guys, thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Refresh. I'm really excited to share with you today. One of the reasons for that is we're in a small group at our church, at Etowah Church, and we are going through a Bible study called Experiencing God, and we are already seeing people encounter the one true living God, and He is at work in great and mighty ways in their lives, in ways that they never imagined possible. And we've had other conversations with a lot of folks, communicating with them about things God is doing and how they are seeing God at work and how God is changing their lives. So I wanted to ask you today to consider two questions. The first question is this: what are you seeing in your life right now? When you look at the big picture of your life, or maybe the small picture on a moment by moment basis, or day by day basis, what are you seeing going on in your life right now? And then the second question is this: how are you seeing God at work in your life right now? How are you viewing the activity of God in your life? So I want you to consider those two questions, but I also want you to know this truth today: that God is always at work around you. There is not a moment of your life that goes by that God is not at work around you. He is always at work around you. But not just at work around you, He is also at work within you. God is doing things in our minds and our hearts and deep down in our souls and in our spirits, because He knows what He wants to do through us. And have no doubt today that God has plans for you. God has a purpose for you. And there are things that God wants to accomplish not only in but through your life. So when we think about that, I'm always reminded of God's goodness and knowing that God wastes nothing in our lives. Oftentimes we look at the bad, and we look at the things that aren't going our way, or maybe the things that we feel like we see these things in our lives, and it seems that they're just coming against us, and nothing good could ever come of that. But I want you to know today that God wastes nothing. He uses everything in our lives for our good and for His glory, so He can accomplish the things that He has ordained even before the foundations of the world. And I was reminded this week through a circumstance that I'll share with you in just a moment. But in 2013, God gave me the opportunity to be a part of the Loganville High School football program. My youngest brother was a senior that year on the football team, and God, through Coach Godfrey, he gave me an opportunity to come each Friday and to speak with the team and to spend time with the team and to spend time with the coaches and to be on the sidelines just to be an encourager. But in that moment, to also be at field level, to be able to watch Robert play his senior year of football. And God reminded me this week of the game at Cedar Shoals that year, and Loganville was near the goal line. Cedar Shoals, and they're battling out there on the goal line. And I'm standing on the sideline, and I watch this play unfold, and it seems like that play just happened in slow motion. But long story short, on that play, Robert took a hit to the knee, and Robert ends up lying on the ground, definitely in excruciating pain. And the trainers go out and they carry him off, and he's lying on the training bench on the sideline. And I go over, and Coach Godfrey is there, and some other folks, and they examine him. And then at the end of the game, Coach Godfrey and I actually together, we helped carry Robert off the field and got him up to the locker room, and then took him back to Loganville and got him to where he needed to be. But as a result of that, Robert tore his ACL. And that was a big moment in his life, because he was in his senior year. He was getting ready to go on and play some college football. And he ended up doing that for a little while. But when I think about that and look at that injury was not a waste in Robert's life, because what he's doing today is he is now coaching high school football at Parkview High School. And Coach Godfrey's now the head coach at Parkview High School. So seeing that God wastes nothing, and God orchestrates all things, and God works all things for our good and His glory, and He puts us in the places and the positions where He wants us to be. But then you fast forward to this week at our 6th grade football practice here in Dawson County. and I'm sitting back. The play's happening near the goal line, and Vincent's on that team, and I'm watching this play unfold. And in a moment, Vincent takes a hit to the knee, and God just immediately took my mind back to 2013 when that happened to Robert. Fortunately, Vincent's injury is nowhere near as severe as a torn ACL, and he's going to recover. And actually, we believe God is already healing him. But it really took me back. And now, even with Vincent, to realize God wastes nothing. So yesterday before practice, we had went to the doctor and got everything examined, and he told Vince he had to be out probably 2 weeks just to make sure everything is good so he doesn't re-injure or hurt anything more significantly. So I looked at Vince and I said, hey man, now you're going to be a great teammate, and now you can be Coach Vince. And you can help me coach out there. We can coach these guys together. So he went and he said, well, if I'm going to be a coach, I got to look like a coach. So he went and he put on his Under Armour pullover, long sleeve, got on his Under Armour shorts, and he got a visor, and he put that visor on. That's what I typically wear when I'm coaching football. So it was one of those moments in a small and maybe seems to you insignificant way but God is wasting nothing. So as I thought about those things since yesterday and thinking about you and this refresh video today, I think this is a very encouraging and refreshing thought to know that the things that we see in our lives are important. But most importantly is we need to see the activity of God in our lives, because God does have a plan. So I want to share with you for a moment from the book of Genesis chapter 32, this man Jacob, not Joseph, Jacob. And this story that God worked through Jacob's life is pretty significant and very powerful as we think about understanding our encounters with God and knowing that God has a plan and a purpose. Matter of fact, as I'm recording this right now, you may can hear in the background Oliver's downstairs, and he's playing with his excavator and his fire truck and his toys. And to me, that's a lot like God. He wants to speak loudly into our lives and speak into our lives and get our attention, and maybe other things are going on, but God is working in the background, and God is doing what God does. So here's a story about Jacob. It says, then Jacob was left alone. So Jacob was a deceiver. Jacob had deceived his brother Esau, and now Jacob is running. Jacob is fleeing. Jacob is very fearful and very scared of what Esau may do to him because of those events. So Jacob was left alone. And maybe you feel that same way today. You feel alone, especially when you see the things that are going on in your lives. And maybe you don't see the activity of God in your life, so you feel very much alone. But he was alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. Now, somehow, this man that wrestled with Jacob was God. And I believe the same thing is true in our lives today, that God is wrestling with us a little bit. That God is not leaving us alone. He is engaged with us in our lives. He is embracing our lives to get our attention so that we can see His activity and we can come to know Him in a way that we never could before. So it says, now when he saw that he did not prevail against him. So God saw that he was not prevailing against Jacob. Jacob was very stubborn. He was very hard-headed. He was very focused on himself and what he thought he needed to achieve. So it says that God didn't prevail against him. So God touched the socket of Jacob's hip. Now the hip for a wrestler is one of the strongest points on a wrestler's body. So God hits Jacob and God touches Jacob in a very strong point, in a way that it would really get Jacob's attention. And he does the same thing in our lives. He touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with him. So you think about your life today and maybe the things that you're seeing, and maybe you're beginning to realize, you know what, this is out of joint. This thing in my life, or maybe my life in general, is not the way that it should be. Things are not happening the way that I think they should be happening, especially in relation to God and His truth and His Word. But know that you're not alone, because Jacob was there as well. It says, and God said, let me go, for the day breaks. So God's telling Jacob, let me go. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So Jacob is clinging to God. He will not let go of God. Can I encourage you to do the same thing? Do not let go of your pursuit of God, of seeing and understanding the activity of God. Seek the blessing of God, because the blessings of God are God's favor upon your life. So God said to Jacob, what is your name? And I think God is speaking the same thing to us today. He's saying, what is your name? Do you recognize who you are? And he said, Jacob. What is your name? He said, Jacob. God said, Jacob, your name is Jacob. He wanted him to know that I know you are the deceiver. I know you are the supplanter. I know you are the one that has tricked your brother. And God is wanting us to know that he knows everything about us, yet he still has a plan and a significant meaning and purpose for our lives. And God said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. God is making a change in Jacob's life. He says, for you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed. So know today that maybe you're struggling in your relationship with God, or you're struggling in relationships with other people, but God is the one that brings you to a place where you can prevail and you can experience the victory that only God can give. Then Jacob asked, and he said, tell me your name, I pray. And he said, what is it that you ask about my name? So Jacob's wanting to know, what is your name? And God says to Jacob, why do you ask about my name? And he blessed him there. So Jacob simply asked God, what is your name? And God blessed him there. See, there is much beauty in you and I seeking to know God. So in your relationship with God right now, in these times of being alone, in these times where life seems broken, and for you it may be something physically is broken, like a knee injury. Maybe something going on mentally. God takes joy in us asking him, God, who are you? God, what is your name? Because it says he blessed Jacob right there in that moment, because Jacob wanted to know him. So Jacob called the name of that place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And that's what God desires for us, that even in our wrestlings with him, to know that he is always at work around us. He's at work within us, because he wants to do a work through us. And God wastes nothing in our lives. He wants to know him, us to know him in a very intimate and a very personal way. And he is preserving our lives so that we can go out into our communities, our schools, our jobs, and even throughout the world. And we can share with others that this is the reality of who God is. This is who I was. This is what he did in my life. This is how he took my brokenness and my circumstances. And this is how he used them, or how he is using them for my good, for the good of people around me, and ultimately for his glory. So I hope today that this will be encouraging and refreshing for you to know that you're not alone. That God has preserved this story through the life of Jacob, that we can be encouraged to know that God is always at work, and he will do everything that he seeks to accomplish in our lives. So you guys have a great week. God bless you.